preparing. Preparing. Okay. All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight for the Virtual Academy information session. We wanted to let you know tonight's presentation is being recorded. Thank you for joining us for the Virtual Academy information session. Welcome back from spring break. We had a great break and are ready to hit the home stretch of this wild school year. We are here tonight to provide you with the most current information on our Virtual Academy that we are planning for the fall of 2021. I'm going to hand it over to Dr. John Malloy, our superintendent, for a few opening remarks, and then we will be reconvening. Dr. Malloy.
Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you to all in our community who are participating in tonight's meeting. This continues to be a unique year, as Chris said, and we continue to do our very best to support all of our students and our families, and we are so grateful for our staff who have continued to provide great service, regardless of the conditions and situations that are surrounding us. We're here tonight to provide more information related to the Virtual Academy. And I know that this is a decision that some of you are really struggling with due to messages that you sent to us. And our hope is that we are able to provide some insights and perspectives that will allow you to make the best decision possible for your kids. I think one of the things that is so important for us to stress is that though we are really looking forward to returning to 5-day full-time in-person instruction next August, we understand that some of our families need to consider this virtual option. And we hope that, again, we are providing you clear information. We are providing you with as much information as is possible. And we're also providing it in a candid and clear way so that you understand what we can offer, because we can't offer everything that some of you have requested over the last few weeks. We will commit to doing our very best. Regardless of the choice you make, we promise a quality option. And I'm thanking you in advance for your participation. And I look forward to the work that we will continue to do in the days and weeks ahead, the work we will do together for your children, our students in the San Ramon Valley Unified School District. Back to you, Chris.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Malloy. As Dr. Malloy said, the purpose of tonight's session is to share the most current and clear information that we can at this time about our planned virtual academy. At the end, we'd also like to answer some of the frequently asked questions we've gotten regarding our virtual academy and virtual academy planning. Why are we creating the District Virtual Academy? While we've said many times that our belief is that students are best served in an in-person environment with a classroom teacher and their peers around them, we also recognize that this pandemic has been confusing and ongoing and fluid, and that some students may need or choose to stay remote, and we want to make sure that those students are served. This proposed virtual academy will allow these families to continue learning in a remote setting, much as they've done this year for the entirety of the 21-22 school year. We are creating this as a district program for two reasons. The first is to minimize disruption to all of our school sites, including the Virtual Academy. And the second is to allow our sites to focus on their return to in-person learning in the fall of 2021. So like we said, Virtual Academy will be a district program housed under our alternative education umbrella. It's important to note that this model is being proposed pending the any legislative action, which may require us to make changes to things such as class size or instructional minute requirements throughout the summer. We know that this is a huge topic with our state legislature, and we will keep abreast of the current guidance in order to make those adjustments. The Virtual Academy is geared towards students from the kindergarten through the 12th grade with unique medical circumstances that may prohibit them from coming back to in-person learning fully in the 2021-22 school year. It's also geared for students who have truly thrived in the remote learning environment. We know that while this year has been confusing and again, fluid, we know that some students really have thrived in the remote learning environment. We will also serve any family who chooses to keep their students in a remote environment just due to the uncertainty that surrounds this pandemic and the ongoing uncertainty into next school year. All students in the virtual academy will be served by credentialed San Ramon Valley Unified School District teachers and staff, and those teachers and staff will be specifically assigned to the virtual academy. We will, of course, be serving our special education students at the virtual academy, and students who transfer to the virtual academy who have an IEP will hold an IEP meeting prior to enrollment in order to ensure that the virtual academy can meet the free and appropriate public education requirements for those students' unique needs. All the special education services will be delivered remotely, and those service providers are assigned specifically to the virtual academy. What we mean by that is those service providers will be working out of the virtual academy. So who may be working with a speech therapist at their current site, not be working with that speech therapist at the virtual academy, but instead service providers, speech therapists, psychologists, resource teachers who are specifically assigned to the academy. That does include all related services, resource program support, all levels of special day class, and that's for kindergarten through 12th grade. So students who are enrolled at the virtual academy, and let's talk a little bit about what enrollment at the virtual academy looks like and what it means. Students are enrolled as students at the virtual academy. That means they're students of the virtual academy, and concurrent enrollment with other San Ramon Valley sites is not available at this time. If your student is a senior attending the virtual academy during second semester, they will receive their diploma through the virtual academy. Families who are interested would need to fill out an inter-district transfer request, and those forms are found under the district website under transfers within the San Ramon Valley Unified School District. Those transfer requests are due April 20th. That's next Tuesday. We know this is a tight turnaround timeline, and we thank you for working with us, but we need to do this in order to adequately staff, plan, and prepare for the best virtual academy that we can, as well as understanding that we need to know how many students are enrolling so that we can plan for the virtual academy, but also because those numbers impact staffing at other San Ramon Valley Unified sites. The virtual academy will be a technologically based remote learning program. So students who are able to bring their own technology, or students who request it or need it, will be provided with the required technology at the virtual academy. So we've gotten a lot of questions about this. What if we sign up for the virtual academy and we decide that it's not best for our student? So what if we want to return to our school? So students who wish to return to their home school at the semester break, meaning December 2021, will be granted a priority to return to their home school. And students wishing to return at any time during the semester, meaning sometime in September or October, November, will be placed at an available space within the San Ramon Valley Unified School District. We want to make sure that you always try to return students to their home, and they will be guaranteed a space if they return for the 22-23 school year, but that may not always be possible. Students who do wish to return at the semester break must indicate their wish to us to return by October 29th so that we can prioritize their return. We also know that we are still rolling out our specifics to the program, and that you need to know some of those specifics as you make your decisions. So once virtual academy program specifics are announced, which will be sometime after the April 20th transfer date, you will have 2 weeks to rescind your transfer application and return to your home school. So it's kind of a two-step dance. Once we know how many students are applying, we'll be able to deliver really specific information about what programs, courses we're offering. And then once we announce that, if it's not what you were looking for or needed, and you wish to return to your home school, we will honor that rescission for a 2-week period. Following that, we are asking that you are committed to the virtual academy for the 21-22 school year. So what's really important to us for our virtual academy students is that they maintain that home and school connection. We know that this has been tough. We know that this has been tough on students' social and emotional well-being, and we want to make sure that we prioritize all of our students' social and emotional well-being. While students are enrolled in the Virtual Academy for the 21-22 school year, we want to make sure that you know that students are eligible to participate in all activities at their home school. That includes after-school sports, clubs, extracurricular activities, and all school activities, such as dances and anything else that might happen at the campus. We've encouraged our principals to be really creative in ways to maintain that home and school connection so that we ensure that students don't feel isolated just because they're attending the Virtual Academy. And we also want to make sure that we're building the community at the Virtual Academy. So we will make sure that there are socialization activities for the Virtual Academy students so that they can connect with their online peers. So we want to talk about the Virtual Academy's academic program at the elementary, middle, and high school level. What's important to remember is that what we want out of the academic program at the Virtual Academy is for it to remain as similar as possible to this year's remote learning program. For elementary school students, that means reading, math, writing, social studies will all be with their classroom teacher. As they do in elementary school, science and physical education will be with a specialist, and we are hoping to offer music in the 4th and 5th grade. At the middle school level, students will receive core, which is their English and social studies and reading at the 6th grade, their science, their physical education, their math with credentialed teachers in individual periods, much as they do in middle school and much as they did this year in their middle school remote learning program. Students will be able to select from a limited number of electives, and the amount of electives that we'll be able to offer will be determined by the number of students applying to the Virtual Academy. At the high school, we are committed to making sure that all the courses required for graduation and A through G requirements will be offered. Students will earn letter grades on their transcript, just as they did this year during remote learning. And like middle school, students will have a selection of electives to pick from. Those electives will be determined by the number of students applying to the Virtual Academy. Courses taken through the personalized learning initiatives, the PLIs, will be honored at the Virtual Academy, and the same policies that apply to our comprehensive high schools and Venture Now will apply at the Virtual Academy when it comes to PLIs. A lot of what I've said, and it's really important for us to kind of circle back and talk about this, much of what we are able to bring to you tonight is dependent on the number of families that want or need the Virtual Academy program. And once we know that number, we will be able to deliver more specifics about these courses. Okay. I'm going to hand it over to Danny Hillman to talk a little bit about what does the in-person learning environment look like. We recognize that in making this decision, many of us have had questions about what the in-person learning environment will look like in 21 and 22. Mr. Hillman.
Thanks, Chris. So just very briefly, as Chris mentioned, we know that some of you are curious about what the fall will look like in person for those that select to be in person on your homeschool's campus. I want to reiterate that this is just a list of planning assumptions that we're using at this point. We know that the state and or the county could adopt various things at any given time. They could adjust existing things that are already on the books and part of our guidance. And so this is just a place to start so that we are moving in the right direction to having as many kids, hopefully all of them, that want to be in person next fall. So here's kind of the list that we have going so far. As I mentioned, the list is based on current guidance. We expect it to be in place at least through the beginning of next school year because health experts are maintaining certain protocols as the pandemic continues to ebb and flow. And obviously, if the state or county guidance changes, we would adjust our guidance needed to maintain the appropriate level of safety for all students and staff members. That's our number one priority for any in-person learning, is that everyone is safe. So first and foremost, students will be seated in rows. They will be 3 feet apart and they will be facing the same direction. If at all possible, if a room allows for it and we can go a little bit more than 3 feet, we will do so. But under no circumstances will we have students closer than 3 feet apart in the classroom setting. Next slide, please. Masks will be required. This is an assumption that we are going into next fall with. We don't see that this piece of guidance is going to let up or go away between now and August and September. So we're planning for it. Also, student schedules for our students in grades 6 through 12 are going to be created in such a way that promotes choice, and we get to fulfill what the students requested on their course selection sheets, while at the same time allowing for quarantining if is needed, if a student is exposed to COVID-19 or they themselves are showing symptoms and need to quarantine. One of the things, this is commonly known as houses or small groups. We're going to schedule students this way from the get-go so that we can pivot from going into quarantine if necessary and smaller groups going into quarantine rather than whole classrooms across the entire school or the entire school. Also, we're procuring additional furniture and plexiglass as needed to ensure that all classrooms are set up appropriately. On the previous slide where we said everyone's in rows facing the same direction, if we have to substitute desks for tables, we will do so. And if certain activities like lab science won't facilitate facing the same direction because they're built into the wall, we'll use plexiglass so that students can face one another when working on experiments or art projects as needed. All other safety protocols are going to remain in place. This is our planning assumption for right now, as I said. If things change, we will pivot too, but most of the safety protocols in place right now for spring will carry on through summer school and into the fall season. And I think I'm giving it back to Chris now.
Thanks, Danny. So what we wanted to do was answer some of the frequently asked questions that we've gotten, and I'm going to hand it to Deb Pettish to deliver some of those questions for us.
Sure. Thank you so much, Chris. So what we tried to do, many of you sent us your questions regarding the Virtual Academy. We tried to incorporate as much as possible the answers to those questions into the content of the presentation that Chris just went over. And then we got a lot more questions today. So we've added many of them here. And so hopefully we will be able to answer your questions. If at the end of this presentation, you still have remaining questions, feel free to reach out to me. Again, Debbie Pettish, and my email will be at the end of this presentation. So Chris, will students lose their spot in their current school program? So for example, ATP or Mandarin, if they enroll in the Virtual Academy for a semester or a year? He might be having problems, and so, or technology problems. So, but I think I can answer that. And so, the answer to that is potentially a yes, because students, once they leave that particular, let's use ATP as an example. If they leave the ATP program at the particular site like Bella Vista or Windermere, then that spot is open for somebody else on that waiting list. And then that other student would move into that spot. And then if the student who went to the Virtual Academy returned, in all likelihood, there would not be a spot remaining for that individual at that particular site. Second question, can we rescind our applications over the summer if we change our mind? Essentially, the answer to that is no. We're really asking that once you make a decision on the 20th, and then we give you kind of a 2-week grace period once you found out exactly what the questions or what the course is. And sorry about that. That we're really asking people to make a full semester, if not a full year commitment to the Virtual Academy. It does really have a lot of staffing implications. And so once we know how many individual students and at what grade levels the students are in, we can then hire the teachers and create a really strong Virtual Academy program for our kids. So third question, if my child ends up getting vaccinated in November, can I send my child back to their homeschool at that point? So this we've gotten a lot. So you can unenroll in the Virtual Academy in November. However, we cannot guarantee that your child will have a spot at their homeschool. We will, of course, do everything in our power. We know students almost want to go back to their home school. So we will do everything in our power to try to get them back there. But if that site is impacted, we may need to send them to another site. Is there an online curriculum, or will it be quote unquote live teaching? So please remember, and we really can't emphasize this enough, we're setting up this virtual academy to be essentially the same in most respects as what a child is getting now in a remote environment. And so it will not be an online curriculum. There may be some outliers where there is an online curriculum. Let's say a high school student wants a very specialized course, and there's only that student that wants that course, or a handful of students. We then could say, we can give you that course, but it might be online. And then that student and that family would then have 2 weeks to make a decision about whether or not they want to stay in the virtual academy or return to their home school. So for the vast majority of students, it will be live teaching, again, with an SRVUSD certificated teacher, much like what they're getting now. Can I transfer from my in-person school to the virtual academy during the school year if the COVID situation gets worse? And so I don't know, Dan, if you want to chime in after I initially answer this, but essentially, sorry about that. So essentially, I've gotten a lot of these questions, and I think what people are really asking is, you know, if we go to our homeschool and my student goes in person, but really our COVID situation worsens, can I then transfer them to the virtual academy? Well, the first thing that I really want to emphasize is that we follow all of the county health guidelines. So if something changes with regard to those guidelines, whether it's, you know, distancing, really that is the one thing, and masking, but really the distancing, of course, has the most impact on how we kind of do school, right? Or at least it has over the last year. And so we will follow all county guidelines. So if county guidelines change and the distancing increases, then we may have to change the way that we do in-person schooling. If a student wants to move from their in-person school to the virtual academy for another reason, the chances of that are probably pretty low, because again, we really want to figure out staffing and have that settled, and no staffing before the end of the school year, so we can create a really, really strong program for our students. Danny, do you have anything to add about that? Like if the COVID situation worsens, what?
Yes, this is what I was referring to earlier. We're going to try to set up, we're not going to try, we are going to set up the students' schedules so that if the situation in the pandemic takes a turn and gets worse, that we can pivot our in-person students to virtual and not have to change schedules. This past year, we weren't set up that way to do that for various reasons. And so that's why we redid schedules at the midway point. We're going to schedule it that way from the get-go, starting right now. And given that people will be put into the smaller groups, as I mentioned, known as houses, we'll be able to send individuals home, small groups of people home if necessary, and an entire class home if necessary, while not impacting the rest of the school. We're going to minimize changes, minimize the amount of mixing in between our grade levels of students in grade levels 6 through 12, because most of us know a secondary student's schedule, you have lots of interactions throughout the day. So we're going to minimize those as much as possible for the purposes of COVID. Our elementary school age students already have this cohort idea built in the sense of they're with the same teacher pretty much all day long. We have specialists that come in and work with them, but they have a teacher of record that is the third grade teacher, for example, or the fourth grade teacher. So we feel confident that we'll be able to set the schedules up, and we won't have to have requests from families to move from in-person to virtual, because we'll just go remote.
Thank you, Danny. And then I think Chris is back. We apologize. He had some tech questions, and I will ask him the next question. Will the virtual academy have the same amount of synchronous time as the in-person students will have?
Thanks, everybody. And I do apologize. We had some technical difficulties here in the office. The Virtual Academy, again, the goal of the Virtual Academy, as we stated earlier, was to be as similar to this year's remote learning program, to this year's remote learning as possible. So roughly the same amount of synchronous time to asynchronous time. It will be teacher-led, teacher-guided. Students are in class most of that time. So as similar to this year's program as possible.
All right, and this one I think has pretty much been addressed, but how can I make a choice about attending the virtual academy when I really don't know what in-person school is like?
Sorry, everyone, we're not sure what's happening there. So we know this is a hard decision for families to make, and that's why we're sharing as much information as we can, transparent with you as we can. You know, we did, following this question, add Mr. Hillman's slides about what in-person school does look like for the 21-22 school year as best as we can describe it. And we know that these are tough choices, and we know that you have a hard time making this decision when you don't fully understand what the virtual academy will look like either. So that's why we are offering the 2-week rescission period following the end of the program specifics as we go forward. And we want to make sure that you have all the information you can as you make that decision.
Okay, so for younger students, will all of the work be virtual, or will some of it be hands-on? And Chris, just to let you know, I get a lot of questions, excuse me, about from parents of, potentially incoming kindergarten or first grade students who ask whether or not their child would essentially be in front of a screen all day, or would it be similar to what they have now in terms of the hands-on activities that teachers send home?
Well, we know our teachers have done just an incredible job of blending hands-on activity while students have been at remote. We know we've all seen kids pick up the supply packets with the hands-on activities, and we anticipate that again, we'll see our teachers be creative with that remote learning and the hands-on activities that can be done at home. But again, we do have to be clear, it is a fully remote learning program at the same time. But we know we'll see plenty of hands-on activities, but much in the same way that you did this year, take-home materials, things like that.
Will students be grouped with other students from their home school to kind of keep some of that continuity?
So students are enrolling fully at the virtual academy. We can explore this option, but by and large, students will be grouped at the virtual academy, and we will be building a school community there. So we have not really stated that students will be specifically grouped with other students, and we could explore this as we get closer. And again, as we see the numbers and the enrollments. But as of now, we really want them to create a virtual community too at the virtual academy.
So will the virtual academy have online socialization opportunities for students?
Yes, as I said earlier, that homeschool and the social emotional well-being component is just huge to us. And we understand that it impacts students who, at next year's point will have been on remote learning for a very long time. We are invested in making sure that they have online socialization, that they're building a community, that they're both maintaining their community with their homeschool, but also that they have socialization opportunities with the students at the virtual academy.
And then will the virtual academy be offered post-pandemic? So the 22-23 school year.
So while we haven't, we've all learned that this year everything's unpredictable, but as much as we can tell, this serves as both a solution to new and interesting problems created by the pandemic, but it also creates a foundation, we hope, that we can grow on and that we can build many, many years into the future. We know that virtual learning is part of the future. We know that virtual and remote learning is going to be some part of how education moves forward from this pandemic. We do anticipate that a virtual academy would grow and become more of a virtual blended learning opportunity as we go forward, and can grow from here. So we do anticipate that it would be offered, but again, we can't guarantee anything past next year. So we know that you may still have questions after tonight, and we really thank you for joining us. So we've offered 2 avenues of support. So if you have questions about the enrollment process, we ask that you contact Sandy Catarusa in our enrollment office, and the email address is right there for you. And if you have questions about the Virtual Academy program itself, we ask that you contact Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Dr. Deborah Pettish, who's been on the call with us, at her email address there. We've also posted a frequently asked questions section to our website, and that will remain updated and fluid as we get more questions from you going forward. We want to remind you that if you'd like to transfer to the Virtual Academy, that those forms can be found under transfers within the San Ramon Valley Unified School District on our district website, and that those are due next Tuesday, October 20th. So we really thank you for joining us tonight. We know it's the night after spring break. We thank you for your time. I thank all my co-panelists. We apologize for the technical difficulties, but please contact us with questions and in any way that we can support you going forward. Thank you.